Welcome everyone to the 14th webinar of the KCHR webinar series. May I request everyone except for the speaker to kindly mute their microphones. After the lecture, you can type in your queries or comments in the chat box and those will be read out. Professor Michael Tharagan, who will be chairing the session, will be joining in a moment. May I request Professor G. Arunima to say a few words as welcome.
Um, we're delighted to have Dr. Dineshan Vadakinir presenting his paper today for us on Mariatam. He's an associate professor at the Government Arts and Science College, Uduma in Kasargod. We in KCHR are particularly happy because he used to be a colleague of ours as an academic coordinator in KCHR a long time ago. He finished his PhD from the Department of Social Anthropology from Bergen on Theyyam in 2009. And he was a postdoctoral research fellow in 2019, also from Bergen. So if Professor Taragan is here, I would welcome him to now come and join us and introduce the speaker. All webinars are in English. These are not in Malayalam because they are on different subjects. Our web talk series are in Malayalam. Thank you.
Professor Michael Tharagan will be joining in just a moment. I request all of you to kindly wait for a couple of minutes. And while we wait, may I use this opportunity to announce our next two events. The first one is on 21st January. It is Speaking in Many Tongues, Articulation of Violence. This is the second event, Articulation of Violence in Poetry, written by Tamil women in Sri Lanka. This is a working paper presentation by Dr. Aparna Ishwaran. And we have on 19th a seminar on the restoration of Raja Ravivarma paintings, which will be live streamed on a Facebook channel. Professor Michael Tharagan has informed us that he will be joining in just a minute. There are some technical issues at his end.
As Professor Taragan is a little delayed in joining us, there's some technical problems at his end. We will start right away with Dr. Vadakanil's talk, and Professor Taragan will speak a few words at the end. Thank you. Dr. Vadakanil, will you please start the talk now? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to give a talk. I was a bit reluctant. Since it is KCHR, I thought I should join KCHR because I was, as Dr. Arunima said, I was formerly working with KCHR as academic coordinator. What I'm going to present is a working paper. Actually, it is a working paper in its initial phase only. I started working on this long back, but I dropped it. A month or two back, my friend Rachel called me and asked to give a presentation. I thought I will rework on it and give a small talk. That's why I'm here, actually. Though,
Dr. Dineshan, could you please switch on your video?
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. As I said, this is actually a working paper in its initial stage only. Actually, the situation in which I started working on it is very interesting. I'm forced to reflect upon it since I found a few, say, social media groups organizing Mariatam online. Actually, instead of offline, they were organizing a Mariatam online the last August 2020, when it became difficult for them to organize the same thing offline due to lockdown. And there was much enthusiasm among the people. I mean, the organizers, and local cable networks telecasted special programs on Mariatam. On the day it should actually occur at a shrine called Madaikavu in Kannur district. And I also watched a Facebook live streaming of a previously recorded Mariatam on the same day. And I was thinking why it is. What is actually they are trying to do with such an online Mariatam, as well as organizing similar event thereafter. So two questions came into my mind, and I'm trying to understand these two, or answer or address two questions which came up after seeing the enthusiasm shown by a group of people in the last few months. The two questions which I'm going to address here are: why does the exorcism, the Mariatam is an exorcism actually, though people say that it is a Theyyam, Mari Theyyam, I would rather consider it as exorcism, because when I contacted the person who organized this program, I was told that they didn't call it Mari Theyyam, rather they call it Mari Sheni Martel or something like that, a kind of exorcism to ward off the effects of Sheni, a demon. That's what they would say. And sometimes they use the word Mari Atam instead of Mari Theyyam to address the whole event. So the two questions that my talk will address are: why does the exorcism rite called Mariatam believed to have originated? I mean, this Mariatam have originated sometime in the medieval period, of course, and why it continues in the present, that despite the changes happened in the socio-economic and political order in the last few centuries, and what really it generates when the rite is invoked in the present. These are the two questions which I'm going to address in this lecture. The birth of Mariatam, as the myth says, was at a critical moment of the outbreak of a pandemic inscribed in the myth as Mari, that had the potential to end the world. Human community in the present is experiencing a pandemic that is increasingly redrawing the horizon of human existence. While performing Mariatam in the present, history and the present, the myth and reality are brought into conjecture. Looking at the kind of experience we learn from such a virtual imagination of the social world, human relations we envisage, and the reality that exorcism or Mariatam brings forth in and through its rite, the talk will move to argue that the demon's affliction and release of Mari or death, Mari can be called death or pandemic. The release of Mari could be a kind of totalitarianizing moment. This is what the rough idea which I am going to present. I don't know whether while I'll succeed in it or not. But before giving, before explaining things, I thought I will show you 2-3 minutes video on Marithev so that you will have an idea. Then I will move on to a discussion. Is it all right?
Sure.
It's
sure,
an,
please.
it's taken from YouTube. This is Marithev. Okay, this is first part of Mariatam, and now I'll show you this the final part. that's it. I showed it because it will be good if if you're having some idea about what is going on here. I mean, what is this Mariatam? What Mariatam is? Okay, Mariatam is a kind of exorcism rite performed in the Madai village in the North Malabar. The myth says it was originally performed to exorcise the Mari that had affected the erstwhile kingdom of Cheraman Perumal. Actually, though it says that Cheraman Perumal, as we know, the person associated with the temple where it takes place is Kolathiri, one of the lineages of Kolathiri. If you are talking to performers, they will say that actually Kolathiri organized this performance on the instruction of Cheraman Perumal. Okay, that is actually an indication towards the kind of political authority existed in the medieval period, and it has some meaning in the present as well. I will come to that later. Mariatam is a kind of exorcism, I told you, is performed in the Madai village in North Malabar. The myth says it was originally performed to exorcise the Mari that had affected the erstwhile kingdom of Cheraman Perumal, and was conducted on the 16th day of Malayalam month Karkadagam, corresponding to mid-July to mid-August. The king said to have assigned the right to perform Mariatam to the Pulayas, a community once considered outcast. They were entitled to enact the rite every year, first before the lineage shrine of the king. Madai Kava is the lineage shrine of one of the branches of Kolathiri. And the rite must take place at first at the premise of the shrine, then every household within his kingdom. Still, the rite begins on 16th day of Karkadagam and lasts for 2 days. There are similar rites in other parts of North Malabar. There are many such things like Vedan part, Adi, or something like that. And also in the entire Kerala, you can also see similar rites from other parts of Kerala, but have different names and different exorcists to perform. The Mari rite is an aesthetic performance involving singing, dancing, and a state of trance wherein people of differently placed in social hierarchy are brought in as if producing the cosmic order in the virtuality of the rite, but engage reflexively with its egregious effects. The known myth of the origin of Mariatam is inscribed in the very song sung during the exorcist rite. In Mariatam, the myth, the spell, and the rite form an assemblage, and this assemblage creates an effect. Mythically, it was performed once to exorcise the evil spirit that threatened the very existence of a state and its subjects. Thereafter, it was repeated every year, maybe for different purpose, with varying intensity and producing multiple meaning. A revisit to Mariatam at this particular moment, I feel significant since it promotes us to reflexively understand how the state and society reacted while a fast infesting disease made everything, including the future of human society, an uncertain affair. While the state remained perplexed, even its own routinized function, it could see the people living in the margin, the Pulaya in the original case of Mariatam, imagining a new egalitarian society, even when taking the burden of warding of the evil within the hierarchical social world. With the state becoming suppressive and a totalitarian force, the Pulaya exorcism is becoming a counter-state force, imagining an alternative, totalizing force. Thus, in a way, Mariatam reveals the conflict and contradiction inherent in the Perumal kingdom, and when it is reenacted in the present, it imagines the contradictions and conflicts differently produced during the present event of pandemic that makes the life chances of the marginalized and outcasts difficult. First, I will discuss the myth of the origin of Mariatam and the rite, and then we'll move on to a discussion on its contemporary effects. The compound Mariatam is consisted of two words, Mari and Atam. The former, that is Mari, has several meanings, of which deadly pandemic or pandemic is the most appropriate to the context. Yet another meaning of the word Mari is rain. The second meaning reminds of the context of the performance of the rite, which is the Malayalam month of Karkidakam, the days in which monsoon rain reaches its high intensity in Kerala. It is during the middle of the month of Karkidakam that two transition happens. One is a transition of the season from monsoon to autumn, and other is a transition of Nyatuvela. It is a period in which Puyam Nyatuvela moves to Ailam Nyatuvela. In short, what I'm trying to say is that Karkidakam marks a liminal period, a between and betwixt of life and death. The word Atam literally means dance or performance. However, in our specific case, it achieves the meaning of rite of exorcism. Therefore, Mariatam can be called as a rite to exorcise pandemic. And the whole rite of Mariatam is sometimes called Mari Martyr, or driving out or exorcising the demons that cause death. It says that the pandemic was originally brought by two evil spirits, Mari and Mamaya, who were from somewhere outside of Malanad and reached here traveling by a ship and crossing 7 seas. They had sneaked into a wooden ship of gods and goddesses, which was bound to Malanad. The evil spirits, birds on the boat, troubled its sail. Realizing that the unusual trouble on board was being caused by the sneakers, the captain of the ship forcefully disembarked the evil spirits or demons at the next port called Velapuram. Velapuram is a place very near to Kannur. Velapuram happened to be a port in the land of Perumal, mythically. Soon after the disembarkment, these demons occupied the borders of the Perumal kingdom and released Mari, that is, unrecognized fever, Pani, and incurable smallpox, Mari. Both had enough potential to threaten the very existence of a state and a society. I read the evil spirit or demons are terrors which prowl at the base of hierarchy. That's why I think read the whole event in that fashion. And also, demonic attack symbolizes the subordination of the marginalized who are caught in an obdurate world, weakened in structure, and who are socially and politically fragmented by economic and political forces beyond their control. As I said, the twin companions of Mari is Mamaya. For ritual practitioners and for astrologers, Mamaya is a shortened form of Mahamaya. For J.J. Pallat, a theology and anthropologist, it is a shortened form of Marimaya. Interestingly, both views converge on the point that Mamaya denotes illusion. Illusion blinds the world, making difficult to know what is really happening. Bruce Cafferer has argued that demonic power is found in the demons as masters of illusion and the trick. Illusion makes it difficult for the people to know the reality. Therefore, it pushes them into a difficult situation to defend their life chances. This Mari and Mamaya affects all, including the king, resulting in a total chaos. The demons become not only disordering power, but themselves represent a totalitarianizing force as well. They are now like king, whose authority lies in his totalitarian force. Under near extinction, now Perumal was forced to find a way to restore order, or in other words, reinstate his authority, for which he consults the village astrologer. All the important persons of the village, the Uralan, Nayars, and others, gathered at the front yard of the village lineage goddess shrine of Perumal, or the Madai Kavu, and an elaborate astrological calculation was conducted. Why the pandemic was, and who could save the Swarupam, or the particular lineage of the Kolatri, or the Perumal, or restore the cosmic order from it, were the two questions of which answers were sought from the astrologer. Astrologer declared that the Mari, or the pandemic, is caused by a group of 18 Shanis. If not conciliated by singing Shanipatu and thus exorcised them, the Maripani, or deadly communicative fever, and Mari Kuripu, smallpox, will engulf the state and society. Mari and Mamaya had already made the chief priest of the lineage shrine of the king a blind, obstructed the daily rituals in all her subordinate shrines and temples, and also emptied the cattle shed and chicken coop of the whole village, making neither to perform a minor Brahminical purificatory rite nor a non-Brahminical sacrificial rite possible. Also, Mary is about to send the king to the other world. Thus, the visiting demons created total chaos equal to that of the Kali age. If affected by Sani, it means for a person to live in a perpetual condition of sorrow, poverty, and danger. The astrologer was also asked to identify the divine chosen exorcist who could do the appropriate rite to ward off the demons and restore the cosmic order. Neither the lineage deity of the Perumal nor the demons could find in the known sorcerers of those days, right from the Brahmin to the low caste Malayan, sufficient power to save the state from the disorder created by its enemies. The search for the right sorcerer or exorcist ended at the Pulaya headman of Madai, honorably called Polla. That's his honorary title, Polla. He was instantly summoned before the shrine of the lineage goddess of Perumal, and finding the goddess satisfied in him and realizing that Sani will manifest the body of his community men, he was instructed to conduct a big event of exorcism to ward off the evil spirit. Being a slave of the goddess Madai Kavu, Polla accepted the instruction and set things to do the right on the day prescribed. The rite was consisted of singing Maripattu and manifesting 6 demons. The number may vary. That depends upon the availability of the persons to manifest these demons. Polla, in union with the Pulaya ritual head of the village named Gurikal. Polla is the community head and Gurikal is the ritual head. Polla, in union with the Pulaya ritual head, of the village named Gurikal, need to do it. The demons to be manifested through the Maripata ritual include both the spirits who causes the Mari and those who could tame and exercise the spirits, namely Mari Kuliyan, Mamaya Kuliyan, Mari Kalichi, Mamaya Kalichi, Mari Kulavan, and Mamaya Kulavan. Among them, the last 2 are embodied of the power to tame and exercise 18 types of malevolent Sani. On the day fixed for the rite, Polla, Gurikal, and the community men gathered at a non-polluting distance on the northeast corner of the lineage shrine and set themselves for the exorcist rite. Using coconut frond, they made the attires appropriate. They make attires appropriate for the spirits they wanted to manifest. Kulians would have face mask, and Kulavan will appear his face painted. I was told that Mariatam always attracted people and they used to gather around the prime locus of the rite. However, those who gather do not come closer in order to mingle with the ritual specialist, especially Polla, Gurikal, or the Pulaya dancers, Pulaya performers who are manifesting the demons. At 12 noon, when the drum sounded on the occasion of the Ucha Puja, or midday worship of the goddess of the lineage shrine Madai Kavu, Polla, Gurikal, and the Pulaya performers, who are now turned as demons in a line, approaches the sacred locus. When the sound of the shrine drum reaches its peak, Polla and Gurikal begin singing verses of Maripattu, accompanied by playing a gong and tudi. The music and singing now transform the song into a hymn or spell, having the potential to exorcise the demons. The demons manifest moves dancing in circle and it continues for more than an hour. Often, the demons make fun of the onlookers and thus present themselves as harmless creatures at some point of the rite. By each encircling they make, when it culminates into a full circle, a Sani is symbolically tamed. The dance of encircling is a symbol of an act or process of encompassment. The singing and dancing ends when the chief priest of the goddess shrine, Madai Kavu, appears before the demons and serve them a course of sweet porridge, payasam. It is believed that he serves porridge because he is saved from the affliction of Mari and Mamaya and regained his lost ability to hear, see, and perform worship her goddess, or his goddess. That, in other words, I would say it symbolically means the cosmic order is restored. Thereafter, Polla, Gurikal, and the manifest demons moved to exercise the entire village, including the houses of each sorcerers, the arch sorcerers, the Brahmins. On 16th, the 6 demons visit the front yard of the local Brahmin houses first, and then houses of other caste people, according to their position in the social hierarchy. The second day, they move at length and breadth of the village, especially visiting the houses of the lower and outcasts, before accepting a big sacrifice at the seashore and return back to sea. This sacrifice and return has multiple meaning, like sending back to the place of their origin, the spirit that causes death had been killed, and the final death ritual has been performed. That which is polluting the village has been removed, etc. All, however, converge on the idea of the restoration of the cosmic order, and this has been symbolized through a redistribution of food and drink. While those who were outside the Pulaya caste accept liquor and uncooked food, those who were from inside get cooked chicken and a measure of rice. The Mariatam can be approached from different angles. However, I will confine to a single aspect. The rite of Mariatam simultaneously invokes the myth of an eventual pandemic that once engulfed the kingdom of Cheraman Perumal, and the exorcism conducted by the untouchable Pulaya sorcerers to ward off that deadly evil. In that sense, the rite manifests a moment of the confrontation between the profane and the sacred, wherein the agency to save or create the social order is embedded in the sorcery, of which an ordinary human being, a village untouchable, is an all-powerful efficient agent. This is notwithstanding the fact that the Pulaya castemen remain suppressed as servants and at times kept outside of the village. The rite of exorcism is done to restore the order when even like Mari or pandemic disturb the order. At several occasions in the myth, Mari and Mahamaya appears as the creator of chaos, destroyer of social order, and annihilators of human existence. One of such examples is the trouble they made in the ship into which they tricklily boarded. It could be read as the first attempt to disorder an otherwise structured movement. The pandemic they create in the kingdom of Perumal is in its ultimate form. It is very close to a near extinction of the entire human life. I have read the demon's occupation and the release of Mari as the totalitarianizing moment, equivalent to the totalitarian rule of the king, which is achieved by suppressing the voices of the subject, especially of those who live in the margin. What is wrong with the totalitarianized world is that it is confined and self-enclosed, and an imprisoned world where all experience and meaning resounds with the over-determining and reductive messages of the life-consuming and fragmenting demon. Meanwhile, exorcism becomes the quite opposite, where demons are rendered impotent, transformed into virtually friendly figures of fun and entities which could be encompassed. They are not permitted to realize their violence. The interplay of the self-enclosed, imprisoned world of the ruler and the harmless and encompassing virtual world of the ruled are aesthetically performed and brought forth in and through the rite of Mariatam. Shani, released by Mari and Mahamaya, afflicts the world. Shani is the cause of unidentified fever and incurable smallpox. In a sense, it is the destroyer of the order. Shani in Kerala astrology is the planet occupying the outermost layer of the orbit, that is the farthest point from the auspicious solar center. He is also called Mandi, meaning slow, weak, unlucky, etc. In the regional tradition of astrology, Shani represents a servant, an agricultural laborer, an outcast, or marginalized person. The use of Shani as the manifested form of chaos or pandemic thus achieves significance. The Pulaya here is using the vocabulary of the dominant to denote the plight of the survived and outcast. At the same time, the Pulaya expresses the wrong done to his person and domain as a prime cause for the destruction of the social cosmic order. Shani is also used to represent different kinds of wild and ghostly beings such as Shula, Pishaj, different kinds of ghosts, Pishaj, we say. Shastav, hunter god. Shastav and Vetakarimugan, both of them are hunter gods. Kuttichatan, a demon with a destructive power. Ulachamundi, a blood-sucking, polluting deity. These are the other things. By the repeated use of Shani, the whole rite remains dominant about the potential of the otherwise considered lesser beings, and it demands a recognition of their potential in the constitution of cosmic order. It tells that the demon, the lesser being, the outcast, can order an offing, or even an ongoing disorder. The myth is not independent of the exorcism rite. The myth or Maripati itself is sung in the process of the rite of exorcism. The intertwining of the singing of myth and enactment of exorcism thus is expressive of the creative, generative potential of the rite of the Mariatam. At a particular moment in the ritual process, enters the chief priest of the king's lineage shrine, who is considered to be the supreme ritual authority in the social world of Malabar. He is now but encompassed with the sorcery power of the Pulaya. Of course, the king did not appear during exorcism. Like many other intermediates in the social hierarchy, his direct presence had been withheld in the sense of the rite, in the scene of the rite. Only those who position outside the hierarchy, the Brahmin and the outcast Pulaya, two putative extremes of the caste order, are present. These extremes have the potential to encompass the whole and therefore find place in the actual rite. The locus where the rite takes place is the northeastern corner of the shrine premise, lineage shrine premise. According to regional Hindu cosmology of Hindu residents, northeastern corner is a space allocated for cooking. Cooking is a kind of sacrifice. Exorcism involves the dimension of sacrifice as well. Significantly, the rite of Mariatam ends by sending the Mari back to the sea after conducting a big sacrifice at the seashore. Cooking begins symbolically in the form of transforming the polluting body of the Pulaya as both demons and exorcising agents, and in the process it is achieved ordering of the disordered. Mari or pandemic, in the above analysis, is the exertion of power by the totalitarian state and consequent threat to the very existence of ordinary human being. It is an event that was endowed with a set of lasting effects, such as the transformation of the political authority of Perumal, subversion of the sacred power of the goddess, and uncertainty of the future of human society. If wanted to survive, the whole need to be restructured, or in other words, there should be a decoding or deterritorializing of the dominant conception of the world. Here, it is hierarchical social order where the Pulaya, like Shani, is either remain on the margin or outside of the margin. This realization of the exclusion is the moment of affliction, disturbing the order and reminding of a possible egalitarian existence. All these are aesthetically produced in and through the manifestation of demons and through the practice of exorcism. As Bruce Cafferer has observed in the case of Sri Lankan exorcist rite, I would say the demonic is a particular construction of reality in which social order is as much a metaphor of the demonic as they might be the real or objective motivation behind the demonic conception of reality. Moreover, to conceive of reality demonically is also actively to form a reality to the terms of the demonic. Mariatam, I would say, is dialectically creates chaos as well as order. Subversion of hierarchy, therefore, becomes foundational for substituting chaos with cosmos, illness with health, disorder with order, falsity with truth, pollution with purity, delusion with plain sensory evidence, vainglory with humility, solipsism with awareness of others, negation with affirmation of social interaction. Victor Turner also makes similar comments. Why Mariatam is important And why do we discuss it in the present? It is not due to the fact that every year it takes place, but because it provides an opportunity to explore for ourselves the realm of normal and abnormal life in the present lived everyday life. It is an intensive moment of generating reality of the everyday world in and through the aesthetics of exorcism, and creates a different accent upon reality. Further, it is through which we can act directly upon the world of meaning and experience, and can alleviate some of its inherent possibilities for suffering and illness. I stop here. I was actually reading the text which the draft which I prepared. I once again apologize that it was only a working paper actually in its initial stage. Sorry for the yeah. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Vadakanil. I was very struck by, I haven't been reading much about this for the last many years. Exciting to hear your work in progress, and I hope that we will be able to get you back to present more work when this piece of research has developed further. I hope we'll be able to get you back. I was very struck by the ways in which you brought together the kind of cosmic universe and a certain kind of notion of the past, a certain kind of temporality, with a non-temporal kind of notion of belief structures that are actually endemic to many of these kinds of rituals. And what was actually fascinating to hear in your reading, and which often one doesn't see in the kind of writing, or at least the early kind of writing one had seen on Mariyattam Theyyam and so on, which focused far more on thinking about the performer, but the way in which you brought the kind of elements of Shani and the elements of the exorcist within the same frame. So that I thought was actually very, very interesting. So Shani is also marginalized, outcast, and so on, as indeed is Pollan and the people who are actually doing the art, the people who are the exorcists. So the Pulaya and the Shani are really both involved in trying to right certain kinds of wrongs. So there are clearly so many different kinds of avenues in which this work can develop. There was a phrase that you used often, and my question to you is really about that. Could you tell us a little bit more of what you had in mind when you spoke about the aesthetics of exorcism? Thank you. And now the floor is open for questions. The request is that people type in their questions, and Dr. Rachel Varghese will read this out to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the encouraging words. I was actually planning to drop developing this paper at some point. When you say that there is some point, some meaning in this paper, I thought I will put much more work on it and try to develop it. On the question of aesthetics, this is an interesting question actually. What I was trying to say is that normally aesthetics is reduced as something which is entertainable, or something which give us some pleasure and things like that. I was trying to move away from that kinds of reduced understanding of aesthetics, and looking at the different aspects of aesthetic practice involved in the ritual, like singing, dancing, painting, craft making. All these are involved in this particular exorcism. And here, instead of seeing them as separate individual acts, I was trying to say that the ensemble of all these elements actually creates life and the meaning and also the effects. And it is the ensemble of these different aspects of otherwise called aesthetic practices generates a kind of virtual reality. And the life lies in that aesthetics. So that is what I wanted to communicate when I say aesthetics. I wanted to differentiate it from the usual understanding of aesthetics as something which is entertaining, to that of aesthetics is life. It is life itself. That's the way I wanted to differentiate my use of aesthetics. I don't know whether I communicated it or not.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dineshan. I will read out the first query. It's from Jasira CM. She asks, is it possible to associate Vasurimala sculptures to the social context of Mariatam?
Actually, in our part, I mean, in North Malabar, we have many other practices associated with curing smallpox. We have a Theyyam called Vasurimala. We have many other Theyyams which is performed exclusively to save the village or a particular individual from the effects of Vasurimala. Whereas Mariatam is completely different. You don't have to link Vasurimala with Vasurimala with Mariatam. It is happening in different situations. It is actually not addressing the issue of an illness. But Mariatam is not actually addressing the issue of an illness. Rather, it is addressing the political power itself, the sovereign power itself. That's why the emphasis on the Cheraman Perumal, the king, or any kinds of political authority. So I would say that pandemic is Mariatam has to be read differently from Vasurimala, because both have different meanings and different contexts and different orientations. That's what I would say.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. Dr. Dineshan, could you switch on your video again? It's from Anil Gobi. If the people have a usage, Mari Matal, like removal of smallpox, say, do we need to think about or emphasize on the second meaning to Mari as rain instead of preferring pandemic, which is more contextual? Of course, the right might be involving a liminal phase.
Actually, the actual exorcist, the word the actual exorcist use something like Mari Sheni Urika. Even it is not even Mari Matal or Mari Atam. They use the word Mari Sheni Urika. That's the actual word that was in circulation, if my memory is right, till 1990, early 1990s. It began to be called Mari Theyyam only by the end of 1990s. And now people call it Mari Theyyam. That's one thing. Here the question is something different. Why should we use do we need to consider the word rain or the meaning rain while referring to the word Mari? Of course, I think that it should be considered. It should be considered. I think that I've made that point very clear in my. It's not Mari. You know, when is a pandemic comes up? Pandemic comes up, or pandemic emerges, in a liminal period. That's what I wanted to say. But the liminal period itself is a kind of pandemic situation, and the liminality, in a sense, is referring to a kind of pandemic. When we use the word Mari, we don't have to confine to one meaning. If you want to understand the whole process, you have to consider as much meaning as you could. You should try to see things in the holistic perspective. So if you're considering more meaning, there are many other meanings as well for Mari, which I did not mention here because we don't have much time for that. Actually, all these meanings have its own significance while analyzing the actual ritual practice. If you're confining to myth, sometimes one meaning or other meaning may do the purpose. But if you want to move from myth to ritual practice itself, you will get much more meaning, much more understanding of this whole process and the context of the usage of such words, etc. If you are seeing things in a holistic perspective, and if you are considering the different meanings emerges. So I think that is important, at least for my analysis, my ritual analysis instead of the textual analysis. The use of the meaning rain has some significance.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. It's from Ritvik Shankar. It's about the virtual performance of ritual art. How ritualistic a ritual art can be in a virtual platform. How do you look at this shift of ritual art from offline to online in the pandemic period?
Yep. I think I must make one thing very clear in the outset. The virtual I used here, not in the sense of virtual space provided by the cybernet or internet. Virtual, I was using the concept virtual in a different sense, or another way, the way in which Deleuze has been using. Deleuze used that concept. So that virtual, virtual used by Deleuze and virtual we normally use in the refer to the cybernetic world is is different. But the cyber, what should be how do you look at the shift of ritual art from offline to online in the pandemic period? Actually, I did some work on that, but not on this particular ritual, but something else, especially on Theyyam. But I found that often the online communities created to say worship a particular goddess or particular deity, or organize a community putting images of certain Theyyam like Muthappan or Muchalotu Bhagavati, some deities representing certain castes. They are trying to organize a community online, and you can see immediately such online communities shifting into the offline world as well. So there is some effect, there is some continuity between the online life, online and offline life. In that sense, it has some meaning. But this particular case, I found interesting. I mean, in this particular case, I mean the Mariatam. I found it interesting because there happened another change in the whole structure of the organization of Mariatam. Earlier, it was organized under the leadership of Polla, I mean the community leader of the Pulaya, and the ritual leader Gurikal among the Pulayas. And it was actually a kind of Tharawad right, and the right to perform was inherited patrilineally. And there is a long history of such transformation of right to do the Mariatam, etc. So it was kind of a Tharawad right, a Pulaya family right. Those who are involved in the organizing Mariatam on the virtual were some of the leaders of the newly formed Pulaya community organizations. Even now, I mean, I was told that 3-4 years back, the whole ritual, Mariatam, is organized not by, even though the ritual heads were there, it is not done by the Tharawad, the original Tharawad on whom the right rests. Rather, the newly formed a group of community men organizes the rite. And the members of this community, this newly organized community organization, were in charge of organizing this online Mariatam kind of thing. Of course, there are other agencies as well, especially some folklore groups in association with some persons are involved in the right, also conduct the same thing. But there is some kind of linkage between the online and offline life, and I think we have to consider that aspect as well. I don't know whether I have answered to take you properly, but this is something else.
Thank you. We have a comment and a query from Dr. B. Iqbal. So, and another related query. So I'll read them out together. The ritual is performed not in relation to pandemics in general, but to control smallpox. There are those who think that the word Mari comes from skin lesion pustules you see in smallpox. If Vasurimala and Mariatam are different, then my question has no relevance. I did not know that. But in your presentation, pandemics was mentioned. Also, the reference to malady brought by ship was mentioned. And there is a second query from him. And your views on the Sitala Devi in North India, considered as the goddess against smallpox.
Yeah, these are questions related to smallpox. The first part, the ritual is performed not in relation to pandemics in general, but to control smallpox. This is a difference which I wanted to make. During the month of Karkidagam, that is during this heavy rain, in North Malabar, people say that they will not be having any smallpox. Actually, smallpox happens. I don't know exactly whether it has any season or not, but we have other deities, a number of other deities, especially for controlling smallpox. We have one called Ottakolam, when Vishnumurti, a deity, appears in a different form and jump onto a pyre or a heap of ember. And this is, people kind of equate with the prevalence of smallpox. We have another deity called Udiya Bhagavati. She is exclusively performed, manifested in paddy fields after the harvest to control smallpox. We have a deity called Vasurimala, and she is of course performed for curing smallpox. We have another two deities called Dhandan and Ghandagarnan. All these deities are performed for Vasurimala. Whereas Mari is something different. It is not performed for curing smallpox. Even though there are references about smallpox, this rite is not done for curing smallpox and has less to do with smallpox. The havoc, the malady brought by ship and things like that. Actually, ship should be taken as the we can simply consider ship as the social order or something like that. It is disturbed. The boarding of Mari and Mamaya onto the ship actually creates havocs. It disturbs the balance. In that sense, ships should not be taken simply as a ship sailing from one place to the other. Yes, we can symbolically taken it as to mean as a social, larger social order, which is otherwise moving smoothly, but the appearance, the problems coming from the margin disturbs the order or disorders the order. In that sense, we can use the ship. That is what I feel.
Before I move on to the next query, there is a comment from Dr. Iqbal on what you said about the seasonality of diseases.
Yeah, smallpox mostly in summer, but when we use the term pandemics, there were only 3 pandemics during this period: plague, cholera, and smallpox. If during rainy season, can be due to cholera. That may be true. Yeah.
So I'll read out the next query. It's from Givargi saying, without going into the subtleties of exorcist practices outlined in your talk, would it be appropriate to consider the quote, banging of plates and flashing of lights in late March 2020 in the COVID-19 context as a kind of residual exorcism ritual living on in the quote unquote modern democratic nation state?
That's a good observation. Yeah, it's not actually. Well, I would read the other way. It's not actually a kind of residual exorcism ritual living on the modern democratic nation state. Rather, it's a way of totalizing. That's the way in which totalitarian power comes up. It creates its own image in that way. Such state such political power may take elements they wanted to what I say create some kind of leadership cult from all kinds of activities, whether it's from exorcism, whether it's from sorcery or black magic or some other religious practices and on and on. This is not actually the problem of democratic nation. Rather, it is the way in which in a totalitarian state, certain ideologies are created, certain propagandas are created, certain leadership cult are brought in. And for that purpose, they may take insight from all kinds of such institutional practices. That is what I would read. That's the way I would read the practice of banging of plates and flashing of lights.
Thank you. I will read out 2 small comments by Dr. B. Iqbal and move on to the next query about what you just now responded in response to his first query. Ship may be a symbol of diseases brought in by Western invaders. And I think ship should be taken seriously. This may represent the colonial invasion and its relationship to pandemics. Would you like to respond to that first, or should I move on to the next?
I'll respond. Need not be ship need not be ship may be a symbol of disease brought by Western invaders, the Dutch. Actually, much before, nearly 2,000 years before the coming of the Dutch, they had contact with Europeans and people from other parts. And ship is a very powerful image in the entire cosmology of Theyyam ritual and the sorcery exorcism ritual in our part. Diseases might have come via ship from other parts, but this is a simplistic way of reading. Here, ship as well as the disease brought in by the Dutch. Actually, even in our case, we say that it's not the Dutch. The Portuguese were brought in some major disease into our country, like Parangipunu or something like that. So even before the coming of the Dutch, we have the experience of diseases coming from the West. But what I wanted to say is that we should not confine our understanding of pandemic other things to a disease. Rather, it should be treated something in a different way. The whole structures how the whole structure gets disturbed, how in a hierarchical social world, certain people are getting, their life chances are getting lesser and lesser due to this suppression of the whole order and things like that. If we are equating SHIP with that and the diseases are something which is brought by some, that's an empirical question. I was not actually addressing a kind of empirical question. Rather, I was trying to understand things differently. That is what I would say about that. Then SHIP should be taken seriously. This may represent the colonial invasion and its relationship to pandemic. That is also possible. But in this case, we have I have a different opinion. Because while doing field work, I came to know that there are similar practices among the Muslims as well. And interestingly, Muslims in Madai region, actually they are now living in the Matul area, Pazhangadi Matul region. There is a family, and they do the same rite. I mean, Mariatam, in a different way. And that family is closely linked with the Arakal Swarupam, the Ali Rajas. So you will see some connection between the kingly order and the exorcist who does the exorcism. So there is some connection like that. I was also told that similar practice is existing in Malappuram region as well. I don't have much details about that, but this one I have. And while developing this paper, I will be incorporating the other things so that I can clearly establish why the state is, or the political authorities, state. I am using the word state in a very broad sense. Rather, I would say the political authority. The question of political authority is much more important. And whenever the state is becoming totalitarianizing, there will be resistance.
Thank you. The next query is from Anil Gopi. What kind of order, cosmic or political, you are mentioning about, which are dealt with in certain rites? A social order with regard to hierarchically arranged castes?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There is an if you are looking at the Mariatam, you will see at least 6 demons manifest. 4 of them are creators of disorder, and two of them are actually warding of such evils and recreating the order. So you will see both in a single thing. That is one aspect of this thing. And if we are thinking the whole aspects about order and disorder in that fashion, what I would say is that in and through the rite, people are trying to imagine, try to challenge on the one side hierarchy. On the one side, you will see the acknowledging the hierarchy. At the same time, you will see the challenging of the hierarchy. Both potential are invested in this same rite. And while challenging the hierarchy, you will see they are trying to imagine a kind of egalitarian social order. I think I mentioned that in my presentation somewhere. So there is hierarchy, and hierarchy is acknowledged. Even in the hierarchy, there are certain, hierarchy is a kind of relation. It's not what we taken as a kind of strata. It's a kind of relation. And the relation, hierarchical relation embeds certain kinds of responsibilities and moralities and things like that. Even that is crossed. Even that is denied. You will see the whole outburst. And it is the context in which people are trying to imagine a different kind of social order. This is only, this is a kind of challenge. This imagination in and through the rite itself is a kind of challenge to the hierarchical order.
So the next query, which I believe is our last query. No, yeah. It's from Professor Sanil Mohan. Thank you, Dr. Dineshan, for your very interesting presentation. It is well known that pulayas used to be sold as slaves at the Madai-kavu. It is at the same place that you have the ritual specialists doing their rituals. Therefore, how do you look at the contradiction in this context? The social history of Malabar presents a different picture of domination and subordination.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a very, very interesting question, and I have been reflecting upon that for long. Actually, I wanted to start the whole presentation from a different angle. Instead of the Karkidaka month when the Mariatam appears, the story should start from the month of Yedavam, the another rainy season. Then only you will understand the whole process, I think. This contradiction is there. I agree that, but there is something more on that. And during the month of say May, June, that is during the month of Edavam, the major ritual at the Madai-kavu takes place, which is called Kalasham. And during Kalasham, you'll see the young performers from different villages gathering at the particular linear shrine and performing Theyyam. And when I asked, why do you come all the way from different parts and do this rite for this particular shrine without receiving anything? And they said that this is our custom and we've come from all these places and we are in a way subordinate to this deity. This is the case of Theyyam performers, like Theyyam performers especially belongs to the Vannan caste. At that moment, these people, I mean, Pulaya does not have any right. They don't even come to that shrine. That is one aspect. There is another occasion, another ritual event at Madai-kavu, which is also very famous, which is Puram. Not the Puram we have in the southern part of Kerala. Puram is conducted in the month of May. Normally it's April, May. It is during this period Pulaya who from all over North Malabar comes and attend the function, especially at the last day of the ritual. You will see. I have to. This is very long thing. Anyway, I'll cut short. Try to make it very short. While the Bhagavati, I have some photographs of that. No. Anyway, while Bhagavati, I mean the Madai-kavu, that is what we locally call the Bhagavati, moves to have her bath, holy bath. Pulayas coming from all part of the North Malabar gathered around the pond. And while going back to the shrine, you will see the Palla, I mean the community head of the Pulaya standing on a particular place on her back to shrine. I mean on her way back from tank to shrine. And from there they stand and do some gestures of the subordination. This is one important thing. And I was told that it is a place from where Pulayas were sold as slaves. That is that particular place situates on the southwestern corner of the shrine, whereas the Mariatam takes place on the northeastern corner of the shrine. You can see the contrast in that way as well. This is one moment in which Pulayas expresses their subordination to the deity. And there are several stories of Pulayas were sold as slaves or are accepting money. I mean, they say that we don't accept money and like that, but accepting money, Pulayas were sold as slaves. And it is in this context we should think about the question you were talking about. Actually, these two things. One is the complete absence of the Palayas. Second is the complete presence of the Palayas and the expression of subordination on one side. And it's completely contradictory reassertion of potential to disorder the order on the other. Even though we can see as a kind of contradiction, I would say that it is not a contradiction. It's a way in which every year, on the one side, they are expressing the subordination, and immediately after, they are coming up with the potential to disorder the order itself. So it's actually the first part, the expression of subordination on the first part, give much more meaning to what is happening in the second part, which is the expression of the right and things like that. And in that sense, I would say I must think much more loudly on this aspect. I will be doing that while rewriting the paper. But I think that the first part, which is the willing acceptance of this the subordination, and in the second part, the reassertion of the potential, the potential of the margin to come up to disorder as well as reorder the order, is not a contradiction. Rather, it gives much more meaning to the whole aspect of social life in the medieval world. That is what I would say. Instead of seeing it as a contradiction, I would say that this is this contradictory relation, the dialectical relation, actually giving much more meaning to the whole social life. I'm sure that I didn't answer you properly, but I have to think properly on that. Thank you very much, Sanal Mash.
We have another query that has come up. That is from Girish Kumar. Though Mariatum's function to resist or act against the authority can you look into the present scenario of COVID? How the authority tries to overpower the performance and performer through the encompassing power of science.
How the authority tries to overpower the performance and performer through the encompassing power of science. I'm not sure whether your observation on the last part, the authority tries to overpower the performance and performer through the encompassing power of science, is true. It's right. Actually, it's not so. Actually, if you are following the discourses emerged during the present COVID-19 pandemic, you will see that a state authority, I mean, political authority, trying to open up, in a sense, the whole field. They permitted at some point they permitted Ayurveda, which is homeopathy, and other practices, and say, which is state otherwise considered as practice of quackers, unscientific, and things like that. That is one thing. Of course, state prevented the performers performing certain rites. That's true. But they actually opened up space for anybody to come up. Now, after the the development of vaccination, or the invention of vaccination, whatever may be the right, there may be some control coming up. But I'm addressing authority in a different way. It's not the question of science or non-science, science or say spiritualism. Political authority may take all kinds of power, all kinds of potential, all kinds of institutional practices for its own need, or its restoration of its own power. That's a question in which I address the whole thing. Yeah, that's what I can answer. I don't know whether I'm sure or not.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dineshan. I think those are all the queries that we have. Thank you very much for agreeing to speak to us on this platform. This was, very interesting. You opened up a lot of interesting questions, both in terms of the ritual and also in relation to the contemporary context that we are in. This was also our first lecture in 2021. We are very glad that we had a very good start for our programs this year. Again, thank you again for being a part of the KCHR webinar series. And I also wish to thank everyone who participated for their engagement through queries and comments and this audience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.